What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero back with another retro Yu-Gi-Oh video. And in this video, we're covering another Warrior format deck. If you don't know what Warrior format is, it's the format held in February 2005 at the SJC Columbus event, and it is a blast to play so far. We've been experimenting with the format on the channel for the past week or so, and it has been really fun. A lot of very interesting decks are viable in this format, as the one with the first sort of official ban list that actually hit a lot of very powerful cards and let a lot of more interesting decks sort of rise to the occasion and have a chance to shine. So we're continuing the exploration of this format with a classic deck, Chaos Return. So basically the idea behind this deck is to utilize the card Return from the Different Dimension, which is a normal trap that says pay half your life points, special summon as many of your banished monsters as possible. During the end phase, banish all monsters that were special summoned by this effect. This is a very, very powerful effect at closing out the game if you manage to banish monsters over the course of the game with things like Chaos Sorcerer or Black Legend Soldier Envoy at the beginning, or just through the effect of DD Warrior Lead, which is at 3 this format. Then you actually have a lot of damage coming down off of this return, and the ability to activate it by paying half your life points means that this thing will always be activatable. So it's a very, very cool deck. I took a different direction than I've seen some other Chaos Return players taking. I'm not the only one to sort of like innovate this style of Chaos Return deck. But this is a much slower deck that I've seen some other people doing. I've seen people using things like Bazoo the Soul Eater set up their Banish Zone to then get out monsters. I've seen people go more aggressive, playing more warriors, maybe playing DD Assailants as well as DD Warrior Lead to continue setting up their Banish Zone. But my idea for this deck was sort of just to take it slow, sort of to gain card advantage with things like Dekoichi and, Gravekeeper Spy, fetching out another spy from deck, and just taking our time setting up the big OTK push and playing a much more controlling game plan. So that's what we've got here today. So let's just go through the card by card real quick. We've got the BLS and the Chaos Stork. These are very important at setting up your Banish Zone. I was debating playing more than just these 2 copies, as it is very important to set up your Banish Zone. But I felt like 2 was enough. And I do think that like there are some cards you could potentially cut to fit in a 3rd Chaos monster, like another Chaos Stork. But I think that ultimately this is fine, and I never really felt too bad about setting up my Banish Zone with just these 2, because DD Warrior Lead is at 3, and this thing will do a lot of work for you. Also, since you're playing a bunch of flip monsters, your opponent might knock them, and if your opponent does you Nobleman Crossout on your flip monsters, you do get a bunch of monsters in the Banish Zone for your returns. So I feel fine that way. We got the Breaker to pop back rows, and also it's a very good dark. We got Demok. Demok is a bit of an interesting inclusion here. This is probably the first card that I'd cut if I'm making a change to the list. But Demok is a very, very good card if it comes back off of return, and when it's removed from the field, it's banished anyways. So basically, this card gives you an extra spell from grave when it's special summoned, and you'll be special summoning it off return a fair bit of the time. So I like this card in this deck. Also, things like Gravekeeper Spy can set up 2 monsters on your side of the field pretty easily, so that way you can easily bring out Demok that way. So I do think this card does have a place in this list. You're also playing things like Raigeki Break, so that kind of pair well with Demok, because Raigeki Break can pitch a Demok in hand, so then you can bring it back with something like a Premature Burial or a Call of the Haunted. So I do like Demok in this deck, but I could definitely see cutting it, as it is a 2 tribute monster, which can be a bit bricky. Next up, we've got Triple Dekoichi. I'm not the first person to play Dekoichi in a deck like this. I actually think in one of the previous Chaos Return decks that featured on this channel when we were playing other decks and testing against it, I think that someone did bring Dekoichi in those, so I liked that sort of tech, and that's part of why we're playing the 3 in this deck. But I do think that it's a very, very good card. Drawing deeper into your deck to draw into your unsearchable return from the different dimension is very, very nice, and also you're drawing deeper into your Chaos monsters, so that's very good as well. We've also got the Triple Gravekeeper Spy. As I mentioned, it gets dark out of deck. It's very annoying for your opponent to deal with, and if they just can't easily out the Spy, then you're just sitting on a 2k wall, able to draw into your combo a lot easier. We've also got Sinister Serpent, because we are playing the triple Raigeki Break, and because we're playing the Serpent, we're also playing Tribe Infecting Virus, which pairs very well with Serpent. Tribe can also clear the way for your big return pushes. If your opponent has got a bunch of monsters on board, you can use Tribe as basically a board wipe. And lastly, for the monsters, we got triple Thunder Dragon. Thunder Dragon is a card that can occasionally break you up because it doesn't actually, do much on its own. You have to discard it to get more Thunder Dragons from deck to hand, but that does deck thin. And if you're playing a slower game like we're doing here, then you don't really care as much about being like super proactive like every turn. So I do think that you can afford to play Thunder Dragon, set up your graveyard, also have 2 monsters in hand that are very good to pitch off Raigeki Break. For these spells, we got like all the power spells here. We got Change of Heart, Confiscation. We do have Mirage of Nightmare in this deck because we are playing an MSC and also triple Raigeki Break. I generally don't like playing Mirage when all you've got is like one spell and trap remover. But there are some decks that do play it, and I think that you can play it. You might draw the MST to out it, or you might not care about discarding cards to grave. But in general, with this sort of controlling sort of deck, I do like to sort of activate Mirage when I do have a way to out it. That doesn't always occur. Sometimes you're forced to sort of activate it in desperate situations. But in general, I think this is a very good card drawing deeper in your deck, setting up your graveyard, and it's just very, very powerful. You can pull it off. Next up, we've got a Mystical Space Typhoon for the Mirage, as I mentioned, but also just for random spells and traps that we want to get rid of before going for the push. We got Painful Choice, which is great at setting up our graveyard. This card is one of the most powerful cards in the format, although it is definitely very tricky to play. We got Pot of Greed here to draw deeper into our deck. We got Premature Burial to bring back monsters from our graveyard. We got Snatch Steal to get aggressive. We got Forceful Sentry, just like Comfy, very good hand rip. And lastly, we got Upstart Goblin. Upstart Goblin is maybe another card that you could potentially cut for a more higher impact card. But I figure, just like the Decoy Cheese, we want to draw deeper into our deck, draw deeper into our combo. So I think that Upstart is worth playing. Also, the 1,000 life points isn't really going to make too much of a difference here because if you're going for a big return push, oftentimes you can just kill your opponent off that. Next up for the traps, we got Call the Haunted to bring back monsters from grave. We got triple Raigeki Break to deal with problematic cards. We got triple Return from the Different Dimension. I've seen some people running 2 of this card, or even 1 of this card, because, multiple copies of it is kind of unfortunate. You generally want to save this for the end of the game when you're going for big damage. But I figure it's unsearchable and really, really powerful. And also, there are situations where you will be using it twice. Occasionally, you can use this as a defensive card. If your opponent's making a big push, you can use Return to bring things back like, Graveyard Respite and Defense will help your opponent a bit. So there are some other uses for this card. So I don't think that 3 copies is that bad, although I could definitely see situations where you brick on multiple copies of it. But, if you do brick on multiple copies, that's why we're playing the Raigeki Break, to sort of unbrick our hand a little bit. Or not necessarily unbrick our hand because we're still losing a card from the hand. But, it sort of is a free card that we can use with Raigeki Break if we really want to. Next up, we got Ring of Destruction to go for big damage pushes. Now, this does sort of conflict with Return from the Different Dimension and Solemn Judgment, but I think the Ring is powerful enough that it is good to include here. Also, if you use Ring early enough, then the sort of damage off of Return and Solemn won't really matter as much. Now, for the triple Solemn, we're playing these because this does insulate our big play. Because if we go for a turn and then our opponent fires TT, then that is obviously going to be kind of unfortunate for us. So we've got the Solemns here. It gives us a lot of insulation. And in a slower, more controlling deck like this, it is very, very powerful. And lastly, we got a Trench Tribute to clear away our opponent's monsters. This can be very good. You can also do some interesting like combo plays with TT if you're setting up a big push, where if you've got a Chaos Monster in hand, you got Lights and Darks banished, then you can go for a turn, go for TT, pop the board, then go for the Chaos Monster. That doesn't really come up all too often, but you can extend that way if you really want to. For the side deck, I'm not really the most confident in the side deck, but I do think that it's ultimately okay. Now, the biggest issue that this deck will face, in my opinion, is facing Royal Decree post-siding. We've got 12 traps, and while they are very strong, if our opponent flips up to Decree at the wrong time and we don't have a way to deal with it, then that's going to be pretty bad for us. So, for the side deck, we've got a lot of spell and trap removers. We got triple Giant Tornado and a Heavy Storm here, as well as a Dust Tornado. Now, these aren't even the best outs to Decree. These are all kind of awkward because what you want to do is you want to use your cards to pop Decree proactively. You don't want it being flipped up and then you can't activate your turn. And if you have to reset your traps, then, your opponent can just reset the Decree. But, we do what we have to do, and occasionally we will, draw into a Solemn or Raigeki Break. They can deal with the Decree when they flip it up. But it is just kind of unfortunate. This deck is very weak to Decree. We've also got a Death Tornado here, which is for a similar reason as the Giant Tornado and the Heavy Storm. But, with Death Tornado, it's a bit worse because you have to use it as a chain to the Decree. But, you do what you have to do. So, that's why these 5 cards are in the deck. If we see our opponent has sided into Decree, we can bring these in. Also, we could potentially just proactively side into them to deal with Decree. Maybe a bit overkill. You might just be better off pivoting into a different strategy and using less traps if you think your opponent is going to go for Decree. But, this is what we've got in the side deck right now. We've also got double Nobleman of Crosscut if we see our opponents on a more flip-focused strategy, which a lot of decks in this format are, and this is very good to bring in. Also, if we hit a Gravekeeper Spy or a Dekoichi off the Nobleman, then we actually get a bunch of cards banished, and that fuels our return plays later, so that is very good there as well. We got double Kaiku in case our opponent's on a more aggressive Chaos deck. We got triple Assure Priest if we see that they're on like Scapegoat shenanigans. We've got a Pikaru Circle Enchantment if they're on Burn. And that's going to do it for the side deck. Fusion deck is here in case they've got Magical Scientists. It's just sort of like a fusion toolbox of the monsters that actually do stuff in this format. But, realistically, this won't really come up that often. But if it does come up, you do want the fusion deck full out here. There is an unlimited fusion deck in this format, so you can technically proxy in whatever fusion monsters you might want. But, I think that it's better just to have a full fusion deck just in case. But that's going to do it for the deck breakdown. I think this deck is really, really good. I really like this deck list. It is sort of still take 1, so there are definitely improvements that can be made. You can also sort of build the Chaos Return deck in a different way if you want to. You could go for a more aggressive build, like with Bazoo, like with DD Sale, and things like that. I just really like this version of the deck. I think it suits my playstyle very well. But to show off this deck in action, let's dive into some games. Okay, we got a game against Hoy to start off. Frequent guests on the channel, always a pleasure to have them on. We're diving in. We do win the rock, paper, scissors, and so we will be going first here. And this is just a super good hand. Wow. So we got Thunder Dragon plus Break plus Pot. I mean, that's really good. So we always start with pitching the Thunder Dragon to thin out our deck. We don't want to pot into a Thunder Dragon and feel really bad about it. So we go for the Thunder Dragon first, then go for Pot, and that is a stacked hand. We're just going to start off with a Dekoichi, Regeki Break, Pass. We don't want to necessarily commit our return because it's dead right now. So we'll save that for later. We're going to pass back to our opponent. We also don't really want to play Mirage Nightmare because, either way, we're going to have 3 cards in hand here. And that's not really the best. We also don't have a way to, we got Regeki Break to clear Mirage, but we don't necessarily want to use it that way right now. So I'm fine just holding the Mirage for later. Opponent's going to play a Mother Grizzly, so it seems like they're on Water, which is the deck that I have featured in the past. Surprisingly formidable. We're just going to go for a Regeki Break on this Mother Grizzly. We don't want to let them sort of get that combo set up there. So we're going to pitch a Thunder Dragon for that. They're going to set 1 pass back to us. We draw Solemn Judgment, which is pretty good. We're going to flip up to Koichi, draw another card here. We draw another Solemn, which is also pretty good. We're going to bring out this Breaker, pop the back row there. It is a Call the Haunt, so I'm glad I popped that. We're going to get in for 3K here. And then we got to decide what to set. We don't necessarily want to use up things like Solemn right now, but we do have a lot of aggressive pressure going here. So we could just set double Solemn and just try and stop them from doing any super aggressive plays, then get in for another 3K next turn. We got Snatch to take whatever monster they might have and go for a big aggressive push. So that might be the best thing to do. So that is what we're going to do here. And they're going to summon out this tribe. They said Prio and declared the effect before they actually summoned it. So, but Solemning this would prevent us from or prevent them from using the effect. So I actually do think about just going for Solemn. I could also not go for Solemn, just snatch it next turn, potentially tribute out for Thunder Dragon, and do that. But I do think that because we got 3K damage on board, it might just be good to Solemn, because I'm not really sure what they do as follow-up for this. So, yeah, I'm going to go for the Solemn here. Yeah, so this will get rid of the tribe. And they obviously won't pitch because they don't even have a chance to activate the effect. But it's always good to sort of check to see if the summon's negated before you sort of discard for cost. Because a lot of decks are playing Solemn now, because Solemn is a very good card here. They're going to set 1 pass back to us. We draw a DD Warrior Lady, so we can drop them down to 500 life points. Also potentially get return set up later if they do attack into the Warrior Lady and banish it. So we attack in for a bunch. They go for a Saku here. We could actually Solemn Judgment this. I think it wouldn't be bad to Solemn Judgment this necessarily. The issue is if they've got like Premature Burial to bring back the Tribe Infecting Virus, and then they pop our entire board with that, and then they summon out a monster, then we just lose the game. So I don't necessarily want to Solemn that, and I indeed don't. I'll save the Solemn for something a bit better. We've got 2,000 damage left to do. We got Snatch Steal. We got 3,000 damage on board right now, so I feel perfectly fine about this. And I'm just going to pass back to them. I could set the return. I could set the Snatch Shield, but we don't really have an easy way to set up return right now. And I also think that the Snatch Shield is kind of a win con, so I don't necessarily want to set that either. Our opponent is going to think about this a bit. Go for Abyss Soldier. We could potentially Solemn this, but I don't really see a good way that they're winning. If they sort of, go for Abyss Soldier, bounce back one of our cards, and attack in. I don't think they're winning this turn with that, and so I'd rather just save the Snatch Steal for the Abyss Soldier here. So I'm fine with this. They go for Abyss Soldier, bouncing our back row. I think that is the smart choice because we don't have a way to sort of clear Abyss Soldier on its own here. They'll attack in for 2 and no back row. So this actually just means we win the game. We're going to go for Snatch here, take control of the Abyss Soldier, and that will be the end of the game. Now, as a note, we do see something very interesting from Hoi here. They're playing Hyosube, which is a normal monster. Normal water monster, kind of interesting. I wonder if we'll actually get to see what that monster's doing there, because it's very much not a typical pick for the water control deck. But we are going to be diving in. We're going second here because we didn't win game 1. And our opponent is going to start off with a painful choice, always a strong opener. They're going to send 2 hand rips, 2 normal water monsters, and a Sinister Serpent. We just give them Sinister Serpent as they're going to get that back anyways. So no point to not giving them this card. They're going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw a Snatch Steal. We're just going to start by pitching a Thunder Dragon, adding 2 more Thunder Dragons from deck to hand. We could get aggressive here, going for Change of Heart, then bring out a Thunder Dragon. But I don't think they're playing Magician of Faith here. I mean, if it is Magician of Faith, we get kind of owned because they flip up Magician, add back a hand rip, and rip apart our hand a little bit. But I feel like it's better to save Change of Heart for when we make a super aggressive play, because right now we get Gravekeeper Spy. So we can flip up Gravekeeper Spy. Then we got 2 ways to take control of their monsters. So that's a lot of damage adding up on board. So I'm just going to play it a bit conservatively here. Set a Spy, set an MSC, pass back to them. And again, this deck is more of a control-focused deck, so I think this play is fine to make. They go for Change of Heart, though, so they take the Gravekeeper Spy. That's obviously very annoying for us, but they don't have any Gravekeeper monsters in deck because they're playing a water deck. So, it's not the worst thing in the world. If this happened against a different deck, that would be a lot worse for us. But as is, we're just taking 27, and they're going to pass back to us. So we do at least have a 2K defender here. We're going to go for Pot, and we draw another Spy, which is very funny. So we're just going to switch the Gravekeeper Spy defense, set another Spy, pass back to our opponent. We don't want to set Dekoichi because we want to actually get out that 3rd Spy from deck. So if we go for Dekoichi, we're making it more likely that we're going to draw into Spy before we can pull off the effect of the 3rd Spy here. And we don't really have to worry about Change of Heart anymore because they already used it. They're going to set 1 monster and then attack into our Spy. We're going to bring out another Spy, and I'm feeling pretty good about this. They're going to pass back to us. And we have the chance to get pretty aggressive here. So what we're going to do is we're going to MST their back row, just in case it's something that stops this, like a TT or something. It is a bottomless, so still happy that I did that. Although bottomless is actually kind of funny against this deck, because if they bottomless your monsters, then you can go for a bigger return play. Now, if they go for bottomless on the return, that's really bad for you, because then you have to rebanish all your monsters. But, in this case, knowing about the bottomless, we can sort of play around it a bit better. So we go for change here, take control of their monster. We see it's Penguin Soldier. Another not really typical choice for the water deck, but we're happy to see this. This could potentially give us a big OTK push. Now, we don't quite have lethal damage here, unfortunately, but we can still go for some big plays. So what we're going to do is we are going to flip the Penguin Soldier, bounce back that Tacrymos, tribute over the Penguin Soldier for a Thunder Dragon, go for Premature Burial on the Thunder Dragon in grave here, and then switch all our spies to attack. Now, this isn't quite lethal. I believe it's 800 off lethal, or no, 900 off. No, 700 off lethal. Yeah, 700 off lethal. I did the precise calculations when I actually did this attack. And the reason why I decided to go for this is 700 life points, kind of annoying for them. Cuts them off Premature Burial. Also cuts them off Comfy if they do have like a Faith to get that back. But I figure that this is a pretty good situation to be in. We're at 4,500 life points without premature burial. They don't have any super good ways of actually clearing our entire board. Like if they go for snatch and tribe, we've got monsters of both types here. So if they do go for that and they want to keep control of one of the monsters, they do have to sort of leave us one monster as well. So, I figure this is a pretty tough board for them to crack. I don't think we're losing this turn. And if they do normal summon a monster next turn, then we do have the snatch shield for that. If they don't, if they sort of turtle up, we can sort of wall up as well and just try and attack them with our double thunder dragons. So I feel like this is a very good spot to be in. We're just going to pass back to our opponent, and they are going to bring out a tribe. So they do have ways to pop our board. But again, as I mentioned, if they do have a snatch, which is really their only way of getting more damage on board, in addition to the tribe, then they're in an awkward spot because they have to sort of crash our monster into the other monster that we have because tribe will clear them both. So, they will indeed clear both those monsters there with the tribe. Attack in for 16, but now we're in a really good spot because we got the snatch deal here. We can try and take control of the tribe. If they've got a way to deal with that, then we do have Dekoichi here. So we're going to go for the snatch, attack in directly with the tribe. They go for call, bring back a Takramos. We can clear that with the tribe there, dealing 100. And now even with the gain of 1,000 life points next turn, we can attack in for lethal potentially. So we're going to set a Dekoichi. They gain 1,000. And they're going to add the Serpent back to hand here. And they're going to summon out a Hyosube, attack in to our Dekoichi. We don't really see a reason to Solemn Judgment this, as we can sort of Solemn Judgment whatever big play they might have next. But it's a little bit awkward for us, given that the Hyosube is also an Aqua. So that's kind of unfortunate for us. They are going to set one pass back to us. And in standby phase, they're going to go for Raigeki Break on our tribe. We're going to Solemn Judgment this. Just keeping our tribe online here. They head back the Serpent. And I actually make a major misplay here because I forget that the tribe is also water. So, or not water, aqua. So actually the tribe will pop itself as long as the Hyosube. So I pitched a Thunder Dragon here. I shouldn't have done this. What I should have done is just attacked him with tribe. Some that Koichi attacked him with that as well. Drop them down to 200. That would have been a bit safer in my opinion. But as is, I just go for the tribe. And now I'm in a bit of a tricky spot. I think what I should do here is just set the Dekoichi because Change of Heart is already used up, so they can't take control of it and flip it up. And I don't really want to be in a vulnerable position with Dekoichi because I'm only at 1450 life points. I've got knock and return, neither of which really help me here too much. So I do want to draw into other things here, I think. But instead I just go for the greedy play. I summon out Dekoichi, attack in, deal 14, drop him down to 200, set the return just in case, I draw into Chaos Monster or something like that. But this is a very, very worrying situation. Oh, also the Nobleman's in here because for game 2, I sided out of Comfy and Forceful in exchange for Nobleman's because I figure I wanted to deal with the Grizzlies, things like that. It also dealt with Sinister Serpent better than Comfy does. And, we're going second, so it's more likely that they're going to open with setting a monster here. So this is a very common siding sort of plan that I have. You just bring in the knocks for the hand rips. But our opponent's going to go for salvage, and they're going to bring out a Hyosube, which will clear our Dekoichi here. And now we're in a tough spot. If we don't draw a way to deal with that Hyosube, we are going to lose the game. And that's why I should have set the Dekoichi instead of summoning it out. I also could have potentially just attacked over the Hyosube with the tribe attacked in with Dekoichi. I would have been in a much better spot here overall. But as is, it is what it is, and we draw a Chaos Monster anyways. We did have a fair number of live draws that would win us the game here, so this isn't the most sacky thing in the world. But I think we could have played this better to be in a less precarious position. But we're going to bring out the Chaos Sork. And we're not going to use Prio because we want to bait out, Saku if they have it. If they do have it, then we can go for a turn, bring back our Thunder Dragon to Koichi, and win the game that way. So we're just going to attack in, and unfortunately for them, it's just a salvage. So that will be the end of the game there. So we managed to win against this sort of janky water deck. After the game, Hoi showed that they're on Dark Factory of Mass Production, which is a cool way to utilize normal monsters here. However, I don't really think the water deck really needs more add-backs because it's already got multiple salvages, which can already be kind of bricky. So I'm not really sure how necessary this version of the deck is, but it is very fun to see people continuing to innovate with the water deck and taking in this new direction. And Hyosube and Takrimos are two very interesting normal monsters that never really get to see play outside of strategy like this. So very, very cool to see. But that's going to do it for game 1. Let's dive into the next game that we've got here. Okay, we got a game against Dump Truck. Frequent guests on the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. we are going to be diving into it. We are going first. Dump Truck is going second here. And oh my goodness, another banger opening here. That is wild. We've gone first and had pot 2 matches in a row. We're going to fire the pot, set a spy, set a break, pass back to our opponent. We don't really have the best things to pitch off break, but we could potentially pitch a solemn because early game solemn is kind of awkward. But we're just going to go for the spy there. Opponent's just also going to T-set pass back to us. And I feel like we can get potentially aggressive here. You know, we got break to deal with problematic monsters. We got spy to get out another spy from deck. And so I feel pretty good about this. We're going to bring out another spy from deck with the spy. We're going to go for a change, flip up their spy. So that is kind of wild. We get 4 spies out of deck. This is really, really good for us. We get in for 4,800 damage if this all goes through. And it looks like it will all go through. So very aggressive play early on, but I think it is the right play. And, you know, even if this wasn't a spy, I feel like it would have been pretty good to take. Because a lot of things that you're going to be setting turn 1 are going to be pretty good monsters to take with heart. And also, even if it wasn't, then we are still getting pretty aggressive here. We got draws next turn as well. So I feel good about this. We're going to set our Dekoichi, pass back to our opponent, and they're going to go for an upstart, so we gain 1,000, insulate ourselves a little bit more, and they've got a change of heart of their own. I mean, that's only fair. We use change on their stuff. They're going to use change on our stuff, so they're going to draw a card off Dekoichi. We could have potentially Raigeki braked or set Dekoichi to prevent them from getting a draw, but that feels really bad, so we're not going to do that. We're going to save the Raigeki break for later. They're going to crash spies together, then they're going to hit over one of our spies with the Dekoichi. And then they're going to set one pass back to us. We get back the Dekoichi here. We draw Mirage, which is really good with Raigeki break here. We are going to think about exactly what to do. We're going to bring out Dekoichi and just get aggressive here. We're going to break their set, pitching the TT, and that's just going to be the end of the game. Because, you know, I figured getting aggressive was good because we had 2,600 damage on board. And then that 1,400 would also just, you know, be the final push. If we had set Solemn, then that would have been guaranteed game. But as it is, it was a little bit risky. The only really good way to stop the aggressive pressure that we had on field there, though, was like TT. And if they TT'd, we wouldn't have had to break. If they had Saku in the back row, then, you know, we would have lost one of our monsters, but we'd still get in for a lot of damage. So either way, I think that was a pretty good play there. But we're going to go in to game 2. We're going to do the same strategy as before. Bring in the Nox, which is clearly very good against our opponent's deck, given that they're playing spies and things like that. So Nock can go pretty good in this matchup. And we draw pot again. We are just the best player of all time. Our opponent is also a great player on their own, though. So they're going to go for coffee here. Hit the pot, pitch that. But we still got a pretty good hand. Now, the fact that our opponent knows about it is a bit worse for us here. But it's still not bad. So our opponent's going to summon out Breaker, set 2, pass back to us. We are going to set a DD Warrior Lady, a Ring, and a Raigeki break, pass back to them. Either of these cards is chainable to the Breaker effect, so I feel fine doing this. But they're going to go for Death Tornado, hit the Ring there, set another pass back to us. So that's kind of unfortunate. We kind of wanted to pop the Breaker with the Ring. They're going to go for Breaker, pop our back row here. We're going to pitch a Breaker of our own because they know about that. So I figure their back row isn't really the most important stuff, and we're popping it anyways because the DD Warrior Lady here walls up the Breaker, so I don't really feel the need to pop the Breaker here. We're going to pop a Ring that is really nice to hit here, and they're going to go for Raigeki break on our set, so it is hitting the DD Warrior Lady, so we will take 1,600 here. Our opponent's just going to pass back to us. We draw another DD Warrior Lady. I could set that instead of the Spy, but I feel fine just setting Spy, getting another Spy out of deck. They know about Spy anyways, so if they've got like Knock, they can banish 3. But, you know, again, that helps out our game plan. If we draw Return, then that will be live. They're just going to set 1 pass back to us. We draw Upstart, which is pretty good here. So we're going to go for Upstart. Draw into Raigeki break, so that's pretty good as well. We're just going to set that pass back to our opponent. We could have also just gone aggressive here, summoning out DD Warrior Lady, flipping up the Spy, bringing out another Spy from deck, and getting in for a ton of damage. But if they've got a Sakuretsu Armor, which we do see here, then that is a really bad play because they can just Saku our DD Warrior Lady. So we're going to set the break and leave a monster in hand to pair with it. And we draw Serpent. That is really, really good. That's about as good as it gets because we got this break here. We're going to go for a Spy, you know, getting the other Spy out of deck here. Then we're going to go for DD Warrior Lady. They've got TT, though, to pop the entire board. That's fine. You know, we got break plus Serpent set up, so it is what it is. And yeah, we also use spy to bring out another spy from deck. So, that was essentially one monster there, and really it was like a 2-for-2 trade, if you conceptualize it that way. So, Heavy Storm's coming down to clear the Raigeki break, kind of unfortunate. And they're also going to bring out a DD Warrior Lady here. We draw Thunder Dragon, not the best here, but we're going to pitch that Thunder Dragon, add 2 Thunder Dragons from deck to hand. And now we're going to do a bit of an interesting play. We're going to set the Serpent pass back to our opponent. It may seem weird, as Serpent is so good with like breaks and things like that, but we also have 2 Thunder Dragons here, so we've got discard fodder in hand right now. What I want to do is I want to either set up a chump blocker to sort of protect us from damage, or have like sort of pseudo removal where they have to remove it with DD Warrior Lady if they want it to prevent us from getting back this monster every turn. So I feel like this is a fine play. Normally you don't want to, set a Serpent into a Warrior Lady, but I think here it actually makes sense. So they're going to choose to banish the Serpent, pass back to us when we draw a break, and so we're going to set that pass back to them. As I said, we got discard fodder for the break, so I feel fine about this. Opponent's going to bring out ADD Warrior Lady here, attack in for 15, and we're just going to take that. We could have broken it, but I feel like we can save our break for other cards later on. And, a lot of the end game cards that we've got sort of have our life points, so I feel like taking more damage isn't really the worst thing in the world here. We draw Premat, so we could go for that potentially. We don't really have the best monsters in grave here to bring back, but I mean, we could bring back like a Breaker and attack over the Warrior Lady. We could bring back a Thunder Dragon as well. There's a couple different cards. I think Thunder Dragon probably would have been better to bring back here over the Breaker, because they both have the same as attack stat. Thunder Dragon just also has 1500 damage, or 1500 defense in case they're playing like Tsukiyomi, which they might be. I've seen some decks playing Tsukiyomi, even though it isn't the most popular thing in the world here. So they're going to just let the DD Warrior Lady die, giving them a light and darkened grave, which is kind of rough for us because it means that they've got a Chaos Monster in hand, most likely. So that's kind of worrying, but we do have the break to deal with the Chaos Monster. If they prio banish our Breaker, then that isn't even the worst for us, because then we've got another monster banished for our return. So they are indeed going to banish a Light in the Dark, bring out BLS. I ask if they go for prio. They do not go for prio. And they're just going to attack over the Breaker, or attempt to, because we've got this Raigeki break, and I feel like it's a pretty high value target to hit the BLS. Now, we could have gone for this main one after they said that they're not using priority, but the fact that they weren't using priority means that they are very clearly just going to attack into our monster. And it's better to use Raigeki break in battle phase, because they do have a premature barrier to bring back the BLS, then we get really punished for going for break too early. If they get called, then we still lose the game here, because they call back the BLS, attack over the Breaker, and then we lose. But I think ultimately we have to go for this play. They're going to set 1, pass back to us. We draw Solemn Judgment. Very, very good card here to insulate ourselves even more. We're going to set the Judgment, attack into their set, just in case it's something like an empty jar, or a morphing jar, that is. But it's just a Koichi, so our opponent will be able to draw 1. And they've got another light and dark engraved, so that's kind of unfortunate for us, but we do have Solemn to deal with that at least. They're going to go for an upstart, give us 1,000. We are happy with that. They're going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw a Return, which is okay here, but it's kind of awkward because you don't just want to return into a Serpent. That's kind of rough. So what we're going to do is we're going to attack into the set. It is a Magician of Faith, so that will get them back a copy. I think, honestly, I should have set the return before doing this, because we got Solemn for heavy anyways, and we probably do want to Solemn the heavy. But by keeping 2 cards in hand, we do bait them into grabbing Comfy, as opposed to grabbing, like, heavy. So I feel like this is ultimately fine to do, and it's very unlikely that they're playing Morphing Jar, because they are playing things like Koichi, which kind of conflicts with Morphing Jar a little bit. Although, I could definitely see a deck like this playing Morphing Jar if they wanted to. So they're going to go for Comfy, rip that last Thunder Dragon out of our hand. I think probably to deprive us from having like more discard fodder for a break, which I think is fine. We draw Mirage of Nightmare, which is pretty cool here. I mean, it's kind of awkward because we don't necessarily have a way to clear it right now. But I think we might just have to go for it here, because we just don't have any other cards. So they use MST on our Premat, so that means that our Mirage here is a little bit safer. They could go for Dust Tornado potentially, but if they had Dust Tornado in the back row, they probably would have used it in the Premat a while ago. So we get to draw 4 off this Mirage here, and we draw an MST, so we draw the out. We are just that good of a player. Our opponent's going to set 1, and we draw into a Warrior Lady. We are just going to MST that Mirage, and we should be able to wrap up the game here, I think. Depends on what their back row is, of course, but, we've got Return. We got Chaos Orc to set up the Return. They've used TT, so they can't really deal with all of our monsters here. So we're going to go for, Warrior Lady. We're going to summon out Chaos Orc, and actually, this isn't quite lethal. This is 35 plus 38. No, that would be lethal if everything hits. But that's if everything hits. they do have 2 back row, so we can't necessarily just solemn 1. They're going to Saku the DD Warrior Lady, and we could have solemned that, but again, you know, if they got another Saku, then that's pretty bad for us. So we're just going to play it a bit safe here. But I still feel like this is ultimately fine because, you know, we've got very powerful cards here. They're going to go for Snatch on the Chaos Stork. I am just going to solemn that. You know, stop that from going through because they could just banish. Well, if they banish the Stork, that's fine. But, you know, I don't want them to get aggressive here. We do have these monsters to bring back if we want to sort of go for a defensive play, but we want to use return aggressively here. And yeah, so they're going to go for Tribe. They're going to pitch card here, get rid of the Chaos Stork. And this is going to be kind of rough for us because we're down to 200, but we should be able to get lethal damage next turn because we can return back our cards here. Actually, we can't quite get lethal because Tribe will pop itself if we use Tribe to pop their Tribe. So it's a little bit awkward in that way, but Painful Choice should fix everything here. So we go for Painful here. We're going to think about exactly what to send. We're going to send Change, Snatch, BLS, and Demok. These are 4 cards that win the game on the spot. Because Change or Snatch, we just change of heart or Snatch Shield their Tribe, return, win that way. BLS, we banish Light and Dark, bring out BLS. We have more cards for return. We can attack over the Tribe, easy. Demok may be a bit weirder of a card to win here, but it still will win. Because what we do is we go for return, bring back Serpent, Breaker, Thunder Dragon, tribute over the Serpent and the Breaker, get back Change of Heart or Snatch, and that wins the game for us as well. But the 5th card, I couldn't quite find an instant win con in our deck as the 5th card. So what I did instead was I just went for Call. If they give us Call, then we've got Call plus Demok for next turn. So I feel pretty good about that. So I think no matter what they give us here, we will be winning the game ultimately. But the Call is the only thing that doesn't win us the game on the spot. They're going to give us the Demok, though, which I think from their perspective makes sense. They don't know we're on return stuff yet. That is sort of one of the strengths of this deck. You don't need to return to win. And many of the games that I played here in Game 1, I actually did not show off the return stuff at all. So our opponent doesn't necessarily know about it for Game 2, and that is a very big advantage on our part. So we're going to go for return here, bring back all of our monsters. Again, because it only pays half, you know, we can use it whenever, you know, unlike Dim Fuse, which does require 2,000 life points. We're going to tribute off 2 of our monsters here, bring back the Demok, bring back a Snatch, and that will be the end of the game here. So very, very good showing for this deck, I think. But, you know, this wasn't the only game we got with it. This was just sort of against more of a mirror match. I mean, we said mirror match over the course of the game, but it's clear that they weren't on return stuff, but we were both on a flip focus strategy, and I think that the return was able to put us a bit over the top of our opponent. But that's going to do it for this game. Let's dive into the next match now. Okay, we got a game against Ketcha YGO official, a frequent guest on the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. We are going to go into an intense rock, paper, scissors, but we do win it ultimately. We're just on our rock, paper, scissors game this match here. And we are going to be going first. This is actually kind of a bad hand here, not going to lie. We do have BLS to set up for a turn later on, so that is nice, but we do need to actually get lights and darks in rotation to actually go for that. So we're just going to set this ring. We don't necessarily want to use the Raigeki Break because everything else in hand is pretty good, so we don't necessarily want to pitch something just yet. So we'll set ring. Ring can sort of deal the same sort of way as Raigeki Break can. So our opponent's going to go for Thunder Dragon here, pitch a Thunder Dragon, and just grab 1. Oof, that's always rough. You generally want to grab 2, so that means they must have bricked on a Thunder Dragon in hand. They can go for the Painful here as well, sending Night Assailant, Demok, Magician of Faith, Trunade, and 1 last. They're going to send Upstart. Now, we can just give them the Demok because I figure with Change of Heart, with Snatch, with Raigeki Break, we've got many ways to prevent them from getting 2 monsters on field, so I'd rather have the Demok dead in hand rather than in grave for them to potentially bring back something like Premature Burial or Call the Haunted. Opponent's just going to set 1, though, pass back to us. We draw a DD Warrior Lady, so now we can start actually getting monsters into rotation here. Attack in for 15, and that will go through. So if they have a way to pop the DD Warrior Lady, we get a Light Engrave. If they attack into the Warrior Lady, we can banish it, set up a turn. So either way, we're setting up something in our hand for later, so I feel pretty good about this. We're going to set a Raigeki Break here because, you know, seeing all these flip monsters here, means that they might set a flip monster next turn. So it's just good to have the option or a Raigeki Break. Also, if they've got multiple ways to sort of set up for Demok, like if they've got pre-mat to bring back a monster and then Snatch Steal or Change of Hearts to take control of our Warrior Lady, then we want the Raigeki Break for that insurance as well. Although, you could argue that Ring of Destruction could do the same thing. Opponent's going to go for a Jar of Greed here, draw one, draw into another card here, and they're going to set two, pass back to us. We draw a Grapefruit Spy, which is really good. We got Light and Dark set up now. We're going to attack in for 15. We could have summoned out the Spy, just attacked in for 27, but I think it's fine just setting it here. We're going to set a return as well because they've set 2 back row, so I don't think it's the most likely thing in the world that we're getting heavied here. They are on Jar, so if those 2 sets are Jars, then that will obviously be kind of unfortunate for us. But, you know, if it's not, then I feel fine about this. Our opponent's going to set 1, pass back to us. And this is pretty good for us. We can just go for flipping up a Spy here, bringing out another Spy from deck, then going for change on the set, and that'll just be the end of the game. So, you know, our opponent might have bricked a little bit that game, but we were able to sort of, set up a good board even if they hadn't bricked, I think. We had a lot of things that we hadn't used yet, and I think we were setting up for great plays later on, too. So, that was pretty good. Our opponent is going to draw here, set 1, go for card destruction. Oh, we liked this hand a lot. This does set up 2 Lights Engraved, but it does make our other Thunder Dragons in deck a lot worse. So it seems like they're on Ancient or Desert Sunlight, which means they're probably on some sort of like Empty Jar adjacent deck, because that is a card that is used in Empty Jar to trigger full effect monsters. But yeah, our opponent is going to pitch a Thunder Dragon here. They get full value off the Thunder Dragon, while we do not. Because we draw this other Thunder Dragon in hand, which is obviously not the best here. But our opponent is just going to pass back to us. And honestly, we're in a decent spot, even though we did lose some very good cards here off that card destruction. We're going to pitch the Thunder Dragon here. I mean, it's not the best in the world, but it does get the last Thunder Dragon out of our deck here. And we're just going to bring up Breaker Go Aggressive because it seems like they don't have many monsters. We get a Book of Tayu, which is honestly pretty good. It can't, it prevents them from going for their big, like, plays later on. And then we're just going to set 2 pass back here. If they go for heavy, I'm okay losing both these cards. But also, you know, if they go for a big combo, I want to have less cards in hand. So, I feel like this is ultimately fine. Our opponent's going to set 1, pass back to us. We draw a Pot of Greed here. We're going to go for Pot, draw 2. Raigeki Break plus Serpent is really good here. So we're just going to play around Morphing Jar a bit, set the Dekoichi, set the Break, and then attack into the set. It's a Night Assailant though, so, you know, we could have gotten punished for going for Dekoichi there. But if they pop Dekoichi, we still have our aggressive pressure on board. So they choose to pop the Breaker instead. I think that's perfectly fine. We're going to pass back to our opponent here. They're going to set 1, pass back to us. We just go for Blind MST in the end phase. It's Ring, so I'm happy we did that. We draw Upstart. We do give our opponent 1,000 here, but I think drawing deeper in our deck is good. You could also argue for not doing this because they are on Empty Jar Shenanigans, it looks like. So the more cards we draw deeper in our deck, the worse it may be for us, but I think this is ultimately fine. We're going to go for Painful. That is a really good draw there. We're going to send a Demok, a Solemn, and a Raigeki Break or Raigeki Break. If they give us the Demok, I feel confident we can set that up for next turn. Because, you know, we got Call in hand, we got Tribe or Serpent or whatever we want to go for here. If they give us one of the Psalms, then that's more Psalm insurance. If they give us one of the breaks, we have another break to pair with the Serpent. So I feel like this is a good set of 5 to send. And they're going to give us the Demok, which makes sense because they don't want to engrave for us in case we've got like Call the Haunted or something like that. But yeah, we're going to attack him with Koichi here. Then main 2, we're actually going to set the Serpent here. Because Demok is not a bad pitch off Raigeki Break, neither is Thunder Dragon. So I feel fine just setting the Serpent here. It also gives us more value next turn if we tribute these both for the Demok. So I feel fine about this play. Opponent's going to go for Upstart, so we gain 1,000 now. They're going to set 1, pass back to us. And we're going to think about this because we could just go for Break now. And we will indeed go for Break now. Pop the set, which was a Jar of Greed, which I feel pretty good about. Chaos Orchid is really good here. I think we'd actually go for lethal damage here. We go for Demok, adding back that pre-mat that we discarded the first turn of the game. And now we're going to banish the Light and Dark, go for Chaos Orc, and then pre-mat back a Thunder Dragon should do it, I believe. Because this will be 5,100. Yeah, that should be more than enough. And yeah, that will be the end of the game. So very explosive play at the end of the game there. We didn't get to use the Call. We didn't get to use the Solemn. But either way, we were going to probably win the game here. So unfortunately, our opponent looks like they bricked a couple times. So because of that, we decided to actually play another one just to see if our opponent could actually get off the combo, show off the deck a little bit. So let's dive into the next game with Kesha now. Okay, we got our next game against Kesha. This was a straight rematch, so we're both on the same decks here. We do lose the rock, paper, scissors there. That is unfortunate. That's the first rock, paper, scissors we've lost this video. And it's a bit more in line with how we normally go. I'm not really the best rock, paper, scissors guy. Our opponent's going to open with Thunder Dragon, adding 2 Thunder Dragons to hand here. They're going to set one, go for card deaths, and that is very unfortunate for us. I mean, this hand isn't like the best. I mean, Painful is really good. I guess it has return as well. So this will reveal what we're on to our opponent, because we actually didn't reveal that in the previous game. So yeah, also losing the Thunder Dragon as always is unfortunate, especially when we draw another Thunder Dragon. But we do have MSC plus Mirage here, so that's a good sort of replacement. Our opponent's going to go for Book of Tayu though, so they're going for the full sort of empty draw combos here. So each of us will get 5 cards. We will commit 2 to board. So we got the Spy and the Dekoichi here. We also do have Chaos Stork, Forceful, and Pot, which are very, very good cards to hit here. So if our opponent can't really extend further, then that's going to be pretty good for us. Unfortunately, they do have the ways to extend further. This may not look like it, but what they can do is they can Monster Reincarnation, pitch the Democ, add back a monster from hand, then go for pre-mat on the Democ, and get back card destruction. And, that would be really bad for us, but it is probably their best play. So it's kind of unfortunate for us. The good thing is that, we won't quite have as many cards in hand as we could have potentially otherwise, because, Dekoichi and Spy will both be on field. Dekoichi and Spy are both good follow-up cards as well. But it is a little bit awkward for us here, because this is such a good hand, but our opponent will likely rip it apart. So, they will indeed go for the Monster Reincarnation, pitching the Democ, adding back a Jar, and they're going to go for pre-mat on that Democ, bring back that, and add back the card destruction. That is the correct play in my opinion. They're going to go for True Nade as well. That is very worrying for us, because now they can go for a pre-mat to bring back the okay, Cyberjar is not in grave right now, but when they pitch the Cyberjar off the card destruction, they can pre-mat it back, go for book, and this might just be getting close to the end of the game here. So we're going to lose a lot of cards from hand there. They're going to lose a lot of cards from hand, but they're in control here. We draw 8, and that is going to be very unfortunate for us. They're going to set one. Oh, thank goodness. Okay, I was really worried that they were going to pre-mat back Cyberjar, go for Book of Moon, go for Book of Tayu, and add more cards to hand here, and it could have gotten real nasty real quick. But as is, we got a hand of 8 cards. These 8 cards are honestly pretty good, so I'm ultimately okay with this. We got Snatch Seal for the Democ as well, so we're feeling pretty good about this. Until our opponent fires Heavy Slump. Yes, this is a Ron control deck. If you're familiar with some of Puyi's videos from GOAT format, this is sort of a very neat deck there. Basically, it's kind of like Empty Jar, where you give your opponent a big hand, but instead of going for the full Empty Jar combo, you just sort of control their hand size a bit. So Heavy Slump will shuffle back every card in our hand into the deck, and then we'll have to draw 2 cards. So that is kind of unfortunate. We lose a lot of good cards here, but ultimately, we still gain 2 cards. We got Dekoichi to draw into 2 cards more, but these cards are kind of rough. Not gonna lie. However, Break does deal with Dark Magician Chaos, which is nice. So I think what I actually might want to do here is just hope to get aggressive. We are going to flip up a Spy to get a Spy out of deck. And we bring an attack because we're optimists. We hope that we draw something good off Dekoichi. And we flip the Dekoichi at a Change of Heart. That is pretty good. That's really good. We can get aggressive here. Unfortunately, we don't quite have lethal because it's 3,800 plus 2,800, which is just 6,600. So we're 600 off lethal. But even if they get back the Dark Magician Chaos, we got break for that if we keep the copy in hand, which we might want to do here actually. So I feel like this is ultimately pretty good. We are just going to go for change, and they're going to go for Raigeki Break on their Democ here. I think that actually makes sense because they don't know what we have. We haven't normal summoned yet this turn either. So they just want to break the Democ just in case, and I think that makes a lot of sense here. But it works out really well for us because we actually did not have a way to get lethal this turn. So now they've just cleared their own Democ for us, and now we can potentially go for a Comfy play instead of a Raigeki Break play here. So I feel good about that. We're going to attack in for a ton of damage here, half their life points, and that means we're in a really, really good spot for next turn here as well. In main 2, we're going to go for the Comfy as opposed to the Break here. So we get to see what they're working with. We see they've got a Book of Moon. We see they've got a Chaos Orc here. I'm much more concerned with the Chaos Orc. They do have Lights and Darks and Grave, and Chaos Orc is really annoying for us to deal with. So we take this Orc. If they want to book down any of our monsters, then we are fine with that. But we do know about Premat and Tayu in the back row, so maybe it would have been better to take the Book of Moon here. But, we got 21 cards in deck. I don't think that they've got a super clean way to kill us here. Also, we can use Break as a way to pitch a card in a pinch. So I feel like we're ultimately okay here. So we're going to send the Sork, pass back to them. They've got Premat. They've got a Book of Moon here to set down the Morphing Jar there. They've got Book of Tayu to flip up that Morphing Jar. And now we'll both draw 5. And that actually works out fine for us. We've got the Break online now. And we draw into some good ones here as well. So our opponent is going to, I let them take back discarding the Snatch Steal because, this isn't like a ranked game. This isn't a tournament game. So I want to sort of get the best testing possible. And I figure the best testing possible is against, the best plays that my opponent has. So I feel like this is fine to do. And I generally do this in testing these decks. So yeah, they're going to try attacking in to our Spy with the Dekoichi. I actually go for Break here, and this is definitely something you don't have to break because this is just getting rid of one of our monsters here. And we're still in a good spot after this, but I figure they're at 2,600. I want to get aggressive before they can set up another combo. I've got Demok to get back any number of powerful spells from Grave. So I want 2 monsters on my side of the field. So I just go for Break on the Snatch, and they're going to set 1 pass back to us. I could have also braked the Snatch Shield next turn instead. That would have given me 2 monsters on field as well. But in case they've got like Thunder Dragon in hand to bring out, actually they can't have Thunder Dragon. So maybe I should have just saved the Break for the Snatch Steal later. But either way, the Break is going to be used on the Snatch Steal, so I figure this is fine. We draw a Breaker, which is fine, but not really the best for us this turn. We go for Demok, getting back the Change of Heart, and now we can Change of Heart their set. And it turns out to be a Magician of Faith that is really good. I mean, we didn't even need the Magician of Faith because it's lethal on board. But, you got to play around Karibo. So we get back the Forceful Sentry. Go for Forceful, see what they're working with here. No Karibo, luckily. But, yeah, that will be the end of the game. We just send back the Magician of Faith in hand. Doesn't really matter at this point, though. And we'll just get in for 21 and then plus 14. So that will be all she wrote for game 1 there. So we get to go into game 2. We bring in the Noct because Noct is good against the deck playing all these flip monsters. And we take out the Comfy and the Forceful. Maybe it would have been better to keep the Comfy and the Forceful in because, they're a combo deck, so we want to rip combo pieces out of hand. But I also think they're a combo deck that doesn't really care about setting their entire hand here. So they're going to set 2 pass back to us. We draw into a Serpent, which is okay, especially with Mirage in hand, but I think ultimately we just want to get aggressive here. We Change of Heart, their set. It turns out to be a Gravekeeper Spy, so we'll get another Gravekeeper Spy and attack. Attack in for 2,400. And then we'll set up our next Gravekeeper Spy here and set the Mirage. If they've got MST for Mirage, that was going to be used on Mirage anyways, so I'm fine losing it to that. But this does sort of give a bluff here, so I figure it's fine. They bring out a Mystic Tomato. They will attack the Mystic Tomato into our Spy, dealing us 200, and then they'll attack into our other Spy. So we get another Spy out from deck, and I feel like this is a pretty good situation to be in. We got DD Warrior Lady to hit over the Tomato, so I feel fine about that. We draw a return as well, which is really good with the DD Warrior Lady. We're going to bring out DD Warrior Lady, switch the Spy to attack, and we're not going to switch our other Spy to attack. You might wonder why I did this. The reason for that, if they've got Saku, they're going to use it on the DD Warrior Lady, and I don't want to leave all my monsters vulnerable in attack position here, especially because I'm planning on crashing the Spy into their Spy. So we're going to try attacking into the Tomato. Unfortunately, it's a Saku, so that will deal with our Warrior Lady, but we can crash the Spies together. Now we got a Light and a Dark Engrave. I guess we already had one once the DD Warrior Lady hit, but I figured it's better to deprive them of monsters on field. They're going to set 2 pass back to us. We draw a Upstart Goblin here, so we're going to draw a card off that. We draw a Chaos Orc, so that's pretty good. We can go for that, and we will indeed go for that, setting up for our turn play later on, and also getting to banish their Tomato. So we'll banish that. We set the return. We set a Dekoichi here, and we could potentially go for a lethal line in coming turns here. They've got Heavy, that's really rough for us, but I still feel like we're in a decent spot overall. Opponents going to set 1 pass back to us. We draw Painful Choice. That is really good here. We're going to go for Painful. We want to do this before going for Dekoichi, just to sort of like thin out our deck a little bit, and sort of get powerful cards from deck to hand. We could have also gone for after Dekoichi, I guess, because we're using the Painful here not to thin out our deck, but just sort of get powerful cards from deck to hand. So, you know, if we Dekoichi flip up and potentially draw a knock or a break, then that's pretty good for us. So maybe I missequenced this. I could definitely see that, but I think this is ultimately pretty fine. They're going to give us the Raigeki break here. That's really good for us because we got the Serpent in hand. We're going to go for a Dekoichi here. Draw a card. They're going to TT the board away. And we drew into a DD Warrior Lady here, so it's all good. We're going to attack in for 1,500. We don't quite have lethal damage here. We just have 2,700 lined up. But, you know, we're building towards lethal damage soon. We're going to set the break, go for Mirage. Break can pop the Mirage, so I feel pretty good about this. They're going to go to standby. We get 3 cards to hand here. And we draw an MST, so we've got many ways to deal with the Mirage. We're going to go for break on their back row after they go for True Nade here. It is Ring. They're going to chain that. We each take 1,500, but now we've got more lights and darks and grave for our BLS that we drew. So, you know, we're feeling really good about this. They're going to set 2 pass back to us. We've got TT here as well, so that's just insulation, I guess. We're going to banish the light and dark, bring out the BLS in attack here. We could just, you know, go aggressive here with the MST as well, but I just want to bring out BLS to banish. If they do, like, have a way to deal with BLS, like a Solemn or something like that, then it's still fine. We get return for the next turn to go for a really big play here. But I'd like to save the Mystical Space Typhoon for the Mirage. We're just going to bring out this Tribe, attack in for 16 here. And we're going to set the fort and pass back to them. And they're just going to admit defeat here. They don't have a way to deal with this. It's just a True Nade, a Jar, and a Demock. So that won't quite do it here. But, you know, I think this does show the power of the deck that, like, we're setting up really tough boards for our opponents to break. And on top of that, if they do manage to break our board somehow and go through a bunch of resources, we then have return to just put the final nail in the coffin. And so I think this deck has been working really well so far. We got some more games, though, so let's dive into the next one now. Now, I said we've got some more games, but it's just one more match against Chef Steph Curry, who I'm not sure if I featured in one of these gameplay videos, but they have shown up in the locals events that we hold on the YGO from Zero Discord server. Link in the description down below if you want to join in those tournaments, as well as the big monthly tournaments that we do in a variety of formats that I feature on the channel. But it's a pleasure to have them in on the gameplay vid. So we are going to go for a pot here. We are just busted. I mean, that's like the 3rd time in this video that we've gone first open pot, I think. So, you know, I'm not going to say take these victories with a grain of salt because I do think the deck is very, very good. But it is good to consider, you know, we have also gotten really good hands. So we're going to go for a Painful here, and we're going to send a pretty eclectic set. We're going to send a Comfy, a Forceful, which are both very good if they give it to us. Demock, a Dekoichi here, and a Spy. We still got one more Spy left in deck. So, you know, if they don't give us the Spy, you know, our other Spies are still live. But if they give us Dekoichi, we get a draw here. And if they give us Demock, you know, I think that we do have a variety of ways to get monsters on board for the Demock. So I'm honestly fine taking the Demock, and I want to get it out of the deck. Because basically what I want to do here is I want to, you know, set up my DD Warrior Ladies or my Dekoichis and go for things that way. So I figure, you know, over the course of a couple turns, we've got a lot of monsters, so we should be able to get 2 monsters on field, tribute off for Demock here. So we're going to set the Dekoichi first as opposed to the DD Warrior Lady. Gives it a little bit more options here. And our opponent's going to go for Forceful, so that's rough. We wanted the BLS set up for next turn. We could have gone for the DD Warrior Lady instead of the BLS to set it up that way. But I figure it's fine getting the draw before going for BLS. But yeah, this is going to be pretty rough, as BLS not only being a great monster on its own, but also a way to get another monster on board for the Demock. So that is quite unfortunate here. They're going to go for change on our Dekoichi as well. Oh, that hurts. So they get to draw a card off that. Attack in for 14. We'll take that 14. They're going to set 2, pass back to us. And this is not looking the best for us. We draw another DD Warrior Lady. Now, DD Warrior Lady is a very powerful monster. So, you know, it's not the worst for us either. This also does sort of conceal what we drew because, you know, they knew about 2 DD Warrior Ladies already. So this is not a bad play for us to make. We're thinking about whether we want to attack into their set. And we should just attack into it. It could be a Spy. That would punish us a little bit. It could be another Dekoichi, but either way, we don't really have a way to stop that monster if it is a flip monster, and if it is something like a Dekoichi, we'd rather have it off the field than have them flip it up and get over our Dekoichi. So we attack into it. It's a DD Warrior Lady of their own. They're going to choose not to use the effect. I think that's fine. And we're going to pass back to them. They set a card here. They attack in with the DD Warrior Lady, getting over our Dekoichi, not using the effect, and they're going to set 1 pass back to us. We draw into the BLS again, so we are really in a good spot here. we could go for MST on their background. We will indeed do that. It's a Raigeki break, so I'm glad I did that. We're going to banish a Light in the Dark, go for BLS, and we're just going to banish their set. Might as well. It wasn't needed to Koichi, so I'm very glad we did that. Now we can crash our Warrior Lady into their Warrior Lady, and we're going to choose to banish, as we don't want to get them monsters in grave. If they draw Premat, that's dead now. If they draw Call, that's dead now. And also, we're setting up for a return play later on. So I feel like this is pretty good. They have to deal with this BLS, a bit of a tricky monster to deal with. They're going to bring out ADD Whirly, though, so that we'll deal with it. They take 15 from doing that, though, so we're in a really good spot still. Also, BLS can be brought out off of Return from the Different Dimension, so that makes for an even more explosive return play later on. We draw Breaker, which is really good if they ever set up some back row here, but we can just keep going aggressive, summoning at this dude Whirly, attacking in for 15. And they're going to pitch a Thunder Dragon, kind of rough for them, because it means that they likely don't have the best ways to deal with the Warrior Lady left, because they've gone through a lot of monsters. They're going to set one, pass back to us. We've got this Breaker for that set, so we're just going to go committing the Breaker. If they've got TT, that's unfortunate for us, but it's not the worst thing in the world, because we got Snatch, we got Serpent, so we got other things to do in following turns. We're going to pop that set. It was a Heavy Storm as a bluff. I feel very good about that. And we're going to attack in for 31. They're on a bit of a clock here. They got to draw into something that can deal with what we've got. Premat is going to be okay because they do have a Thunder Dragon engraved now, so they can bring that back. And they've got Sook to deal with the Breaker now, so that's pretty good for them as well. So they're going to attack the Sook into the Breaker here, and then they're going to attack the Thunder Dragon into the DD Warrior Lady. Now, thinking about what they've got left in hand, I know they've got 2 Thunder Dragons in hand, so they don't have any ways to stop a play that we're doing next turn here. So I actually choose not to banish off the DD Warrior Lady because we get Snatch Steal. So I sent it to grave, but they banished the Thunder Dragon off Reflex. But yeah, I don't use the effect, because we got Snatch, and Snatch will be game here next turn. So we draw Chaos Orc, so that would be game even on top of this. But yeah, Snatch will do it. We don't have to reveal the Chaos Orc in hand. Maybe we're just playing BLS. They don't know. But that is going to be the end of game 1. So we're going to dive into game 2 here. This deck has been performing really well for us. We're going to bring in the Nox for the hand rips again. That's our standard side deck strategy. And, in these past games, our opponent actually hasn't known about the return after game 1. So, we haven't really had to worry about Decree. So that has been very, very nice here. Opponent might just bring in Decree anyways, but from what they saw game 1, they didn't really see any traps, so they don't really have a reason to do it. They're going to set 2, summon out a DD Warrior Lady here, pass back to us. They've got Dust Shoot, though. Dust Shoot's going to be pretty good here, taking a DD Warrior Lady from our hand. But even with that, we got Takoichi is set up, so that's pretty good. We're going to set the Takoichi, set a trap here. Raigeki Break. I mean, they can probably have the read that we do have a Raigeki Break set as opposed to Call, but we could have set Call. You don't know. It could also be Nobleman of Crossout as a bluff, because they're less likely to set into a known Nobleman of Crossout here. So, yeah, it could be a variety of things. They're going to attack into our set. It is Takoichi. They're not going to use the effect, which is fine. If they had used the effect, then we set up for a turn later on. If they didn't, it's fine for us, as I said. And we draw Serpent. So we could set the Serpent here, but Serpent is a card I actually want to keep for Raigeki Break. So we're going to set the Call instead. If they go for aggressive push, we can go for Call instead. But yeah, they're going to just attack in for 15. I could Raigeki Break this, but I figure I've got other ways to deal with it in deck. And again, because return is half our life points as opposed to being 2,000 like Dimension Fusion, I don't really need to worry too much about the life points we're losing here. Life points is a resource, and I'm fine to use it up. We're going to set a Solemn, pass back to our opponent. And again, Solomon's a card that doesn't really care about how many life points we have left. It just cares that we have a single life point left. So, they're going to attack in for 15 off that DD Warrior Lady here. They are going to think about exactly what to do. They're going to just pitch for hand size at the end of the turn, get a Light Engrave, and we draw a Spy. Spy is really good here. We can set the Spy, pass back to our opponent, and they're going to set one attack into our Spy with the DD Warrior Lady, so we get another Spy from deck. And they're going to choose not to banish, it looks like, and they'll pass back to us. And now we're in a really good spot. We draw Thunder Dragon. Can't really do much here, but again, we've got so much stuff in our back row. We've got Raigeki Break, we got Call, we got Solemn. We got so many ways to sort of make plays happen later on that we're perfectly fine just sort of slow rolling a little bit here. Our opponent is going to think about this, and they're just going to pitch in on the Thunder Dragon, pass back to us. We draw a DD Warrior Lady on top of this. We're going to set the DD Warrior Lady here. We want them to attack into the Warrior Lady next turn. Then we can go for a big push with our Spies. And we're just going to pass back to our opponent. Because we're setting DD Warrior Lady, we also could have potentially set Return, because we could have sort of fodder set up for that. But I don't really think we're winning next turn. even if we do make a return play. So I feel like this is ultimately pretty fine. I mean, there are ways for us to win. For instance, if our opponent attacks into our Warrior Lady with their Warrior Lady, and they set a Dekoichi. If we knock the Dekoichi, we get a bunch of Dekoichis banished, and that would actually lead to the end of the game potentially. But they're just going to knock our DD Warrior Lady here. So they're going to pass back to us. Very glad they drew the knock after we had gone for our Spy play. We actually might have solemned the knock on Spy. So that's food for thought, whether we would have done that or not. But either way, we're fine letting the knock deal with the DD Warrior Lady here, as it's going to get banished anyways. We're fine with it being banished. So, yeah, we're going to go for Snatch that we drew off the top here, and we're going to attack in for a ton of damage here. And then in main phase 2, we contribute set over the DD Warrior Lady to play around TT a little bit, and also just keep a monster on board. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to set the return as well, pass back to our opponent, because now they're low enough where bring back DD Warrior Lady off return might actually ensure lethal damage here. So they're going to go for Jar Draw. They're going to go for Jar Draw again. So, you know, it looks like the back rows were bait. So I'm honestly very happy we didn't like blind break any of those. But we're fine with them getting draws. We don't need to solemn any of that. They're going to go for DD Warrior Lady, Snatch Steal our Graveyard Spy here. They're going to crash these spies together. We could go for break on the Snatch. I don't really think it's necessary, though. We got pre-mat to bring back monsters from grave. If they banish our Thunder Dragon off the DD Warrior Lady, then we can go for return plays there. So I feel like, honestly, this is perfectly fine. So, you know, they'll crash the spies together. That is perfectly fine. They're going to just flip the Thunder Dragon up, not banish, and then go for smashing round, which is quite unfortunate, but I do think we're still in a good spot here. Because what we can do, especially when they have no back row, we're in a really good spot. Because what we can do is we can sort of revive our Thunder Dragon, attack it for the Warrior Lady. They're likely going to banish, and then we can go for a return play, which won't quite, well, actually will be the end of the game with Call as well. So, yeah, we draw Painful Choice, though, so that will just wrap things up even further. We send Demok, Change of Heart, Pot of Greed, Ring, and MST. The last card didn't matter, which is why I just sent a random card. If they keep Dark Magician, Chaos, and Grave, we just bring it back with Pre-Mat or Call. So realistically, they have to give us the Demok here. They know about the call that we have. So yeah, they give us the Demok. But you know, we do have ways to actually bring out Demok. So we're going to go for call here to bring back a Thunder Dragon. Now we're going to go for pre-mat here to bring back a Thunder Dragon. And now we're going to tribute off both and bring out a Demok. So Demok will be able to get us back a pre-mat. We could have also just gone for Change of Heart or Snatch Steal Engrave. That would have also been lethal damage. But you know, I'm getting a bit fancy. I'm styling on my opponent a bit. We bring out Thunder Dragon that way. We attack over the Warrior Lady. If they banish here, then we get back Demok off return. If they don't banish here, then we've got 3,100 damage, which should be enough to kill here, unless they've got Karibo, which most people are not playing here. So they banish the Demok. I attack in for 16, and that is going to be a return to win the game. So, you know, again, I think part of the power of this deck is not necessarily revealing that you're on return in game one, because we saw that multiple times over the course of these games. The deck can win without using return. It's a very grindy deck. You know, you're setting up a lot of plays over a long period of time, and you've got a very, very good control of the game at many, many points. And you know, return is generally just used as the ender. You know, if you've gone through a lot of stuff here, return gets you a lot of monsters on field all at once, and gets in for a lot of damage all at once. And so I feel like this version of the deck is my preferred version of how to build a Chaos Return deck. I think it's really, really fun. You know, as I said, there are things that I potentially cut in the future. You know, Demok, maybe a bit too greedy of a card. You could definitely cut that for something a bit more consistent. But I think this deck is pretty sick. Now, some caveats that I should mention. In most of the online tournaments that are held in these formats, you know, especially the big multi-day ones, replays are shared. So basically, when you finish a game, you post the replay to the Discord server, and that will lose you the element of surprise. If you use returns, or, you know, people see that you draw return over the course of your game plan, then people will know you're on return. They will side in decrees, things like that. So you will have to expect decree more often if you play in those sorts of events. Also, you know, we didn't actually see our opponent bring in Decree, but sometimes you will be up against players who see you're on a lot of traps, bring in Decree, and Decree does sort of eat this deck alive in a lot of ways. You do have ways to deal with it with Raigeki Breaker Solemn, but if your opponent just flips a Decree when you've set a bunch of traps, then you're oftentimes losing those games. So, you know, it is good to keep in mind that there is that sort of silver bullet for this deck that is in this format. So, you know, you do have to prepare for that. As I said, I think the side is sort of teched out to deal with Decree, but it's not really the cleanest out to Decree, so you could also include things like Double Snare or things like that if you want, to just deal with that. But I do think that as is, the deck is still built pretty well, and this deck will win you a lot of games, especially if you're just playing like single matches against people in the Discord server potentially. But yeah, I think this deck is really, really awesome, and I definitely think that, in the right hand, it could definitely be piloted to either a tournament top or a tournament win. But that's going to do it for this deck breakdown. I hope that you enjoyed as always. If you enjoyed this sort of content, please do subscribe to the channel. It really does help a lot. And if you want to support me directly, I also do have a Patreon server, which, linked in the description as well. And, if you join the Patreon, you'll be able to be shouted out in these videos. So big shout outs to GMYFS, Rincewind, Brendan Docker, and Pork Chop Coom. It really means a lot to me that you support me directly this way. So thank you so much for that. Also, let me know your thoughts on this deck down in the comments below. I look forward to talking with y'all as always. Also, if you enjoyed the video, please do give it a like. And I really do hope you enjoyed the video. But until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.